Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so glad to see so many faces here. Welcome to the museum. And those of you joining us online, welcome to STEAM at the museum. So today I'm going to be leading a demonstration called Discovering Sound. And before I get started, I'm going to just talk a little bit more about the museum. So for those of you who are here, you obviously know we're in downtown Kitchener. But for those of you tuning in, FYI, we're in downtown Kitchener, and we're located in southwestern Ontario. And this land has been home to Indigenous people for thousands and thousands of years. As settlers, we're super grateful for the chance to be able to live, work, and play on this land, and we're grateful for the generations of Indigenous people who've lived here. And in the museum's area, those people are the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Attawandarunk, or neutral people. And the museum is also on the Haldimand Tract, which was an area of land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. And if you didn't know, the Grand River is a massive waterway that runs from the north all the way down to Lake Erie. So, like I said today, our activity is called Discover Sound. So I'm going to be leading a few demonstrations to help you guys learn a bit more about sound and think about it and how we're able to perceive it. So the first thing I'm going to tell you guys is that sound is a wave. Now, a wave is a transfer of energy. Whatever is being affected by the wave isn't really changing place. It's maybe moving around a little bit. And I've got a little demo here that I'm going to use to show a wave. So, show of hands for those of you who are here. How many of you have been to the beach before? How many of you have seen the waves on the water? Yeah, so waves on water are something that we're usually pretty familiar with, and this is kind of what I'm able to show with my spring here. So we can see that the wave has an up part and a down part, and it's just kind of moving along. Now, what's really important, like I said, is that the energy of the wave is moving from my hand to the post over there, but the spring isn't really moving. It's actually the energy that's moving. So the spring is kind of the parts of the spring are shifting, but they're not actually traveling with the wave. It's the energy of the wave. And this is kind of the wave that we're most familiar with, this up and down movement. But sound isn't actually an up and down wave. So this kind of wave is called a transverse wave. And I'm going to show you what sound is. So sound, let's catch this here. So sound is a little different. Sound is a vibration wave. So if I get everyone to put their fingers gently to their throat and just make a sound or talk to your neighbor, you're probably going to feel a little bit of buzzing in your fingertips. So right there, what you're pressing against are your vocal cords, and your vocal cords are vibrating. That means they're moving back and forth, and you can feel that through your fingertips, and we can hear it with our ears. Now, I'm going to show you what a sound wave looks like with this slinky here. And I'm going to do it right in front of this camera because some of you may not be able to see a little further back. But if I stretch out my slinky and I pulse a little bit, so I'm going to take my right hand and push forward, instead of getting just that up and down movement I showed you before, what we're getting is a compression. So parts of the slinky are squishing closer together and then spreading apart. And that squishing and spreading is what's traveling along the slinky. And that is what a sound wave is like. So a sound wave is a vibration wave, a compression wave of things getting squished together and spreading out and squished together and spreading out. And the word for that in science is called a longitudinal wave. So sound waves are longitudinal wave. Transverse waves aren't exactly what sound waves are like, but they're really, really good for us to help us picture and understand how a sound wave is behaving. So I'm going to come back around to my little spring here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the anatomy of a wave and how we can describe a wave. So I'm going to start going up and down again. So you can see we've got a part of the wave that goes up and a part of the wave that goes down. The part of the wave that goes up is called the crest of the wave. And the part of the wave that goes down is the trough of the wave. So those are two parts of the wave. And then when we think about describing waves, we can think about it in three different things that we want to think about when we're describing a wave. The first, I'm just going to catch this. The first is called amplitude. So I'm going to start by making a really small wave. Actually, I'm going to there we go. All right, so I'm going to make a wave. And you can see it's kind of moving along. Now, if I were to I'm going to keep the pace going, but if I really, really give my hand a bit more energy, we can see that wave is getting really tall. And if I go not so much energy, we can see it getting a little shorter. Now, the length of the wave wasn't changing. It was just the amount of energy I was giving the wave. And this is called the amplitude. So the height of the wave tells us how loud a sound is. So a really high amplitude wave is a loud sound. But a low amplitude wave is a very soft sound. So I'm going to try and see if I can get quiet sound there. So that's kind of one thing that we can think about. We can think about amplitude. So loud or soft. Now, the other thing that we want to think about with a wave is we want to think about the length of the wave. So I told you there's the crest, which is the top part, and the trough, which is the down part. And we can, I'm going to just get my wave going. All right, so we can measure the length of the wave, which is called the wavelength. And that is the distance from crest to crest or trough to trough. And that tells us a lot about, what it tells us is a bit about how the pitch of the sound. So I'm just going to see if I can get some waves going here. So right now, I would say this is a short length wave. The wave distance from the crest to the crest isn't that long. But if I were to maybe change my wave a little bit and do a longer wave, like that, we can see that the distance from, in this case, there's one crest here and a trough down there, but we don't even get to another crest because the wave is already so long. So this is a longer wavelength, and this usually is a deeper sound. Now, the third thing that we want to think about with waves has to do with the wavelength, actually, and it's called the frequency. So I'm going to stay with my nice long wavelength wave. And the frequency is the number of times that a wave hits something or passes by something. So if I have a long wave, it means that the frequency is actually lower because it's so big, not very many waves actually get to a point in a certain period of time. But if I were to go from a long wave to a short wave, oh, making lots of noise. All right, we can see that there's actually quite a few waves in this distance from my hand to the post. And so shorter waves have a higher frequency. And high frequency short waves are high pitch. So that means they're squeaky or maybe a very, very high voice. But a long wave with a low frequency is a very deep sound. All righty. So I'll wrap this up here. All right. And I've got one little other thing that can kind of just help us picture waves. This demonstration here, this is kind of fun. So this is going to create a standing wave, and I'll put it on so you guys can see, and it can help us. All right, so you guys should be able to see, like that. There we go. You can see that there's a part where it bulges, and then a part where it pinches together. And the part where it bulges is called an antinode, and the part where it pinches together is the node. And this antinode is where the crest and the trough show up, and then the node is where nothing's really happening. And so another way of thinking about the wavelength is going from node to node, because that's a pretty easy point to see. So if I were to go from here to here, that would be the length of the wave or the wavelength. All right, so just another little way of thinking about waves. And if I were to maybe bring this up a little bit more, our wave gets a little bigger, so maybe our amplitude's getting a little bigger. And if I were to pull this down a little bit, we can see the bulgy part's getting a little smaller, so our amplitude's getting a little smaller. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so those are some ways for us to think about waves and think about the ways we can describe waves. So the pitch of the wave, or the frequency of the wave, and the amplitude of the wave, or the volume of the wave. Now, like I said, sound waves are actually vibrational waves. So I've got a couple of, some of you may have seen a smaller version of this. I've got some tuning forks here, and I'm just going to use those to show you again that sound is made by vibrations. I'm just going to come up to this camera over here, because this will be a little easier to see. But if I tap on my tuning fork, you'll be able to see that the tines are moving back and forth. In fact, they're probably quite blurry. And that's because they're vibrating, and that's what's making the sound that we're able to hear. So I'll try that again with another one. I've got quite a big, heavy tuning fork here. And the vibrations are a lot easier to see on this one. It's just kind of hard to get it going. Let's see if I can do it on this table. There we go. Well, a little bit. So we can see that the tines are vibrating when I hit it with my mallet. So sound waves are made by vibration. So earlier I got you guys to feel your vocal cords when you're making sounds. So air is passing through your vocal cords. The stuff in your vocal cords is like cartilage and muscles and tissue are all kind of changing shape and changing the air as it passes through your vocal cords to make different sounds. Now, sound can travel through air, which is kind of obvious because we hear it. So we are able to hear sound in the air around us. Sound can also travel through liquids and can travel through solids. But sound cannot travel in a vacuum. So I've got another little demonstration here that's going to show that. So I've got this little beeper. I'm going to put the last battery in, and it's going to make a loud noise. And this is a bell jar, and I've got a little vacuum plate here. So what this vacuum plate is going to do is it's going to suck the air out of my bell jar. And we're going to see if we can hear the change in the volume of my little buzzer inside of here as I pull more and more of the air out. So I'm going to start by putting my buzzer in, or putting my battery in my beeper. All right. So it sounds like an alarm first thing in the morning, but all right. So you can hear that as soon as I put my bell jar over, it does get a little more quiet. I'm going to use this pump back here to start drawing some of the air out. Now, I've tested this out. It does take a few pumps, so I'm going to get you guys to count with me. We're going to start by going from 1 to 25. We'll check in and then do 26 to 50, and then 51 to 100. So it'll take about 100 pumps to actually really get the volume down. All right, so are you guys ready? You're going to join me with counting, all right? So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. All right, so it's gotten a little quieter, not by much. All right, so we'll go up to 26 to 50 now. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, and 50. Okay, so it's gotten a little quieter. It's a little ambient noise in here, but it's a little quieter. We're going to try for the last 50 and see if that really quiets it down. All right, so the last 50. All right, and 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, last bit, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, and 100. Whew, all right, good job counting with me, guys. Okay, so we're going to just use our listening ears. Are you guys able to hear the beeper? It's gotten really quiet in there. Yeah. So I don't think I've gotten all the air up, but I've gotten a good chunk of it. I can, if I put my ear up to it, I can hear it a little bit. So it's gotten quite quiet. Now, I'm going to open up the valve, and we're gonna all listen to it for about 5 seconds, and then I'm gonna open the valve and let the air in. And I want you guys to just pay attention to what you're hearing, all right? So I'm just gonna go quiet for a second. Okay, and I'm gonna let the air in. You guys able to hear that now? Oh, yeah, more air, all right. So this is a really cool way of showing that, I'm gonna take the battery out. So that's a really cool way of showing that sound needs something to travel through. If sound is a vibration wave that requires stuff to move, if there's nothing to move, then there's no sound. So that's the whole idea of in space, no one can hear you scream because there's a vacuum. So, all right. So we've shown that sound is a vibration wave. Sound requires something to travel through. The next two things I'm going to show you is we're going to have a chance to actually look at sound and see what sound might look like. So sound is caused by vibrations, but it can also cause vibrations. And so I've got a little laser light thing that we're going to test out. So right here, what I've got here is just a can with a balloon over the top. And this creates a nice, thin, stretched out kind of membrane. And this is a really cool way for us to think about how sound waves can cause other things to move around. So, and that's actually really important for us to think about how we hear. So sound gets into our ears through our outer ear. It goes into our ear canals and hits something called the eardrum. And as the sound waves hit the eardrum, it causes it to wiggle back and forth. That makes other things wiggle back and forth, and then that sends a message to the brain that, okay, there's a noise. So we're going to see what those sound waves might look like by using this little fun tool. All right, so I have a speaker in here. Let me just make sure it's all connected. Perfect. All right, so I have a speaker in here. I'm going to put my little can on top. And I've got this fun little app that just makes different sounds, or not different sounds, different tones. So this is a frequency generator, so I can decide if I want a high frequency sound or a low frequency sound. So a high pitch sound or a low pitch sound. Now I'm going to shine my laser pointer on my little setup here. And we're going to get it to line up onto the shadow play first. I'm going to get that to happen. Oh, not quite. Where are we? There we go. All right. So, a little bit. There. Okay, so on the top right-hand side, you can see there's a little blob of light. Not terribly interesting. I'm just going to open up my device here. Okay, so it's just a dot, but if I make a sound go through, oops, it changes the shape a lot, actually. So I'm going to go maybe a little lower. And then we'll go to a higher pitch sound. So we can see that our laser pointer, if I don't have any sound, our laser pointer is just a little dot. But what happens when I send a sound through my speaker is that those vibrations are causing the little balloon to vibrate. And there's a little mirror stuck right there. I just put a bit of blob of glue and put a mirror there. And when I shine my laser pointer onto the mirror, as it's vibrating because of the noises that are going through, it's creating a totally different shape. So we'll do it again. Get it up there for you. All right, so we've got top right there. Whoops. There we go. We've got this big, long, ovally shape. And I could just drop the frequency and change how it looks. So that's me changing the frequency of the sound. Oops, that's interesting. All right, now the other thing I want to change is go down a little bit more. There we go. So I want to change the amplitude. So the amplitude is the volume. So we're going to see what happens to this light as I change the volume. So I'm going louder and louder. You can see that little pattern's getting bigger, and if I go smaller, the pattern's getting a little smaller. Or go quieter, I mean. Change the shape a bit. There we go. We get a nice ovally shape. Yeah. So that can show us a little bit of what a sound wave might look like. Now, what I just played was something called a pure tone. So it's just like it's a single note. But the world is not full of pure sounds. It's not just a single note. There's lots of things. You can hear my voice is constantly going up and down and changing, and everyone's voices are different from one another. So the sounds that we're hearing are actually very complex waves. So let's see what happens if I were to maybe, instead of playing a pure note, I play a song. So I'm going to pull up a song here. We're going to see what happens. Okay. All right, so I'm going to crank up the volume. I'm going to get my light up. All right, so we've got it right there. And we're going to see what happens if I were to play a song. So we can see that the laser is definitely changing its pattern depending on what's being played in the music. Oops. Now, on the laser kind of looks a bit chaotic. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's sort of almost gibberish. But we can hear those vibrations in our ears, and we can make sense of it as music. And as parts of the song get louder or quieter, you can see that the shape is changing. All right. All right. Okay, cool. So that was showing you a little bit about how we can see sound through the vibrations that it makes by running into thin objects. So if you wanted to make this at home, this is pretty easy. You just need a can, a bit of balloon, and a bit of mirror. And if you have a laser pointer and a speaker. So it's something that you guys can definitely try out at home. Now, the last little demonstration I wanted to show you, again, showing you how we can see sound and what sound looks like when vibrations are hitting it, is we've done a little musical set with our laser pointer. We are now going to test out, we're gonna kind of make a bit of a dance party. So we're gonna test out, we're gonna try and make Oobleck dance. Now, has anyone ever heard of Oobleck before? Okay, I see a couple of hands, yeah. So Oobleck is a very interesting liquid, or fluid, I suppose. It's called a non-Newtonian fluid. I'll get this out of the way. So if I'm really gentle with it and just swirl it back and forth, it behaves like a liquid. Like a thick liquid, but it's liquidy. But if I were to go like that and try to push into it, it gets really hard. I'll see if I can scoop up some. So I can scoop up the Oobleck, and as soon as I'm not pressing on it, it just droops off. So usually when we think of matter, or we think of different substances, we think of solids, liquids, and gases, and they change their state basically depending on temperature, really. But Oobleck is a little different. Oobleck goes from liquid to solid when you apply pressure. So we're going to see if we can make Oobleck dance in I've got a little speaker here, subwoofer, and we're going to see if we can make the Oobleck have a little bit of a dance party. So I'm just going to scoop up some. Try and scoop up a little bit here. Oops. And as soon as I'm not putting any pressure on it, it just flows. So you can see as soon as it drops. Scoop up a little bit more. See a nice big chunk of it. And then as soon as it gets in there, it turns into a liquid and melts almost. All right, so I've got a little bit of Oobleck in here. Now, for those of you who don't know, Oobleck is cornstarch and water. It's really, really simple to make. It's not that not that hard. So if you ever wanted to try this at home, you would just need about a 2-to-1 ratio of water to Oobleck, and try and just play around with your consistency until it's something that you like. So we're going to start off with tones again. So remember before we did pure tones with our laser pointer. So we're going to try that again with our Oobleck and see what happens. So I'm going to start with a higher pitched tone. Do you guys hear that sound? A little bit of ringing? All right, so not a whole lot's going on there. Let's see what happens if we drop the frequency. Still not much. Oh, okay, we can see a little bit of movement there. Take this out so I can poke at it. And then we'll go a little lower. Lower still. There we go. See a little bit there. So you can see it vibrating a little bit. I'll see if I can get it to add a little bit more to it. There we go. Oopsie. All right, so we can see a little bit of waves there. See if I can crank the volume up a little bit. There we go. So we can see that it's kind of jiggling around a bit. So we've got our pure tones. We'll try to see what happens if we'll change it to a bit of music, and we'll see what happens if we play some songs. Now I'm going to use, what I found is that deeper notes tend to work a little better, so I found some like kind of bassy stuff that we'll try. We'll see how that goes. You can see our oobleck there. There we go. Ah! Cool, so that was kind of neat. So if you ever wanted to try this at home, again, something that's pretty easy to do, you can create some oobleck at home using cornstarch and water. There's lots of different recipes, different consistencies, and you just need a bit of saran wrap or a baking tray or something to cover a speaker. And usually, like I said, deeper sound wave or lower sound waves, deeper pitch sounds tend to work a little better to get the oobleck to dance. And like you saw, it just needs like a second to get warmed up, and then it starts flopping around, which is kind of cool. So that was all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us for STEAM at the Museum Discover Sound. I hope you learned something new, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me. Bye.